What is up, everybody? Welcome back. So, getting right into it, I am finally taking this girl to get a tune and see how many buff Hurspurs we can get out of this pretty stock Integra Type R engine. So, I'm not expecting to make a whole bunch of jam out of this, but if I can tune it, get the air fuel right, get everything running nice and smooth, and know I'm not going to have any issues down the road, that's good for me. So some of the mods that I have are very minimal. It's just a 70mm throttle body that I also port and match the intake manifold to the throttle body, so that should get some nice flow. And a 2.5-inch exhaust all the way back to my spoon end one muffler. See? That muffler right there. I went over some stuff in my head that I figured I might need to check, and this is it. This is what I've come up with. I took out my OEM injectors, which were probably still fine, but reason I did that was because I found some K-series injectors in my toolbox that I forgot I had. So I took these over to my buddies over at Full Throttle, and I had them flow check them, and they all checked out great. So I also picked up a set of top hats for them and the bottom adapter pieces that are needed to run them correctly on the B-series intake manifold and fuel rail. So I'll go over this in a little bit. I also bought new spark plugs because I want to make sure I got the best spark possible for what I have. That's the part number for the NGK plugs I'm running, BKR7E-11. And I got a wideband sensor. So I've had my wideband in my car for a long time, and it's been running rich, very rich. So I figure it's time for a new one. And I've messed around with a coldish air intake manifold that again, my buddies at Full Throttle helped me put together. Thank you, Tom. So yeah, I'm going to be going over all of this stuff and pretty much how I set these up, putting them back in the car, changing the plugs, the wideband, and this I'll go over because this is pretty interesting, some stuff that I learned. All right, guys, so for the injectors, I found the easiest thing for me to do was to remove my fuel rail, take these top hats, slide them into the fuel rail, as far in as you can get them. Alright, those are in. The K-series injector, to help it fit onto the B-series intake manifold, they're going to give you a set of washer and a rubber grommet. So the washer just slides over the injector like so, and the rubber grommet goes just like that. So now I'm going to take these 4 injectors, go drop them into my intake manifold, and then slide the fuel rail right on top. Slide it over the O-ring, and this will be it, going into the fuel rail and intake manifold. Now, one thing I did notice was the K-series injector, let me move these aside, is slightly taller than the B-series when it has this top hat on it. So what I'm gonna have to do is add some washers between the fuel rail and the intake manifold. So where the bolt goes through for the fuel rail, probably gonna add maybe 3 washers or 4 washers. I'll figure it out as I go along. And yeah, it should make the fuel rail fit just fine. One quick thing I forgot to mention about the K-series injectors and these retrofit pieces is that this O-ring, let me take my gloves off so you can probably see it better, is this O-ring here comes on the K-series injector in this little slot. So what we do is, well, what I had to do is take the O-ring out, then you'd be able to slide the washer over and then the grommet. So the reason you have to remove it is because the O-ring does not fit through the washer. So you're not getting this washer over that. So there you go. Just something I forgot to mention. Already got one injector in. Time for the next. They just slide right into the intake manifold, just like the original ones. Nice and simple. Now I'm gonna grab the fuel rail. I might as well plug these in since I'm here. Who knows, maybe this will bite me in the ass later. I don't know, we'll find out. Alright, so that's there. Let me go grab the fuel rail and then we'll start bolting this baby back in. Got my fuel rail. Gonna slide her back under. Oops. This is kind of hard to do with one hand. Ooh. Alright, let's see if I can do it this way. Alright, fuel rail is pretty much back under the strut tower bar. Now if you see, the silver caps are going to line up with the injectors. Now I can push my fuel rail into the injectors, making sure that I don't pinch any of those rubber O-rings anywhere. And that's it. She's in. She's pushed in about as far as she can go. Now, that gap there is what needs to be filled. So, originally with the B-Series injectors, the fuel rail came with these guys. These three spacer things. See, 1, 2, 3. So what I actually have now is some larger ones that I found in my toolbox. So if you compare the height, you can see they're significantly larger in height and in diameter. So I'm going to try these out. Hopefully these give me enough space and we'll see what happens from there. Alright, the fuel rail is back in. Those spacer pieces, which are right here that I was talking about, they actually worked perfect. I don't remember if they came with this fuel rail or not for an instance like this, but that was exactly the size that I needed. So now the next thing I'm going to do is just reconnect my fuel lines. This is my return. Whoops. My return down here. And then I'm going to reconnect my feed. And then reconnect my throttle cable. And then I can prime it and make sure I have no leaks, which is very importante. Everything's tight. I've tightened up my feed line, which is right before my regulator. I've tightened up my return line. I'm sorry, right before my fuel gauge, my pressure gauge. Then I've tightened up my return, which is right after my fuel pressure regulator. The rail is tight. All the plugs are in. The throttle cable bracket is bolted back in. So now it is prime time. Get it? Prime time? So I'm gonna take my key, put it in the ignition, and prime it. Let's hope I get no leaks. Let's see. Anything? Is she wet? Nothing over here. It's pretty dry down here. Let's do it again a couple more times, see what we get. Just want to add a quick note on if you do this injector swap for your B series, or even if you go up an injector size in your K series, always make sure to make the change in your Honda or your ECU, whatever you may be running, whether it's AEM, Haltech, whatever. Make sure you update it to whatever new injector size that you're using. So I'm going from what I believe was a 240 to a 310. So I need to break out the laptop and update the ECU. That way it can communicate and know that I'm running a larger injector to tune down the duty cycle so I don't flood this thing with fuel. So just wanted to make sure you guys knew that. It's very important. Don't forget. Well, there it is. The plugs are in. I already did the wideband sensor because I was under the car. I'm sure you guys know how to change your No2 sensor. Now I'm gonna get into my cold-ish air intake. The reason I say cold-ish is because I'm not 100% sure if it's really gonna work as a cold air or not. So this is basically what it is here. I've got this 90 with a 45-degree elbow and a straight pipe with my filter at the end of it. So it will basically fit like this. This will be off the throttle body here, comes across, down, and this sits right in front of the transmission, right kind of behind the radiator, but I have a 3/4 size radiator, so there's a gap like from here to here, so the air can kind of go right into the filter. So to get into like some detail of what this really is, whoops, stay still. This is 3-inch piping, this 90-degree elbow. This matches right up with my 70mm throttle body. So if you guys are interested in making this for yourselves, let's see. I've got to the middle of the 90, I've got about 7.5 inches from where it meets the throttle body to the middle of this 90. And then I know the pipe is somewhere in here, right? So let's do this. So from the middle of that 90 to where the pipe is, I've got about a foot, maybe a little more. So this I had to cut this end over here, so you figure this was, I cut a few inches off of this, so this was probably 12-inch by 12-inch 90, 3-inch inner diameter. And then this coupler is kind of like the little secret sauce. Coupler goes from 3-inch to 3.5. I don't know if you can tell the diameter difference. Yeah, that's a good shot there. Goes from 3-inch to 3.5, and then this pipe is just, you know, 9.5 inches long. Nothing crazy, nothing out of this world, nothing a few dollars can't pay for. And for the most part, it's pretty smooth in there. It goes right through fairly easy. You know, the coupler doesn't restrict much. And from what I understand is you can actually gain some velocity in your air by going from a larger inlet into something smaller. Granted, you don't want to choke it out, but I figure 3.5 to 3 inches isn't that big of a difference, so it should be okay. So now I'm just going to put this on, and then I'll show you guys once it's all hooked up what it looks like in the car. Intake is in, nice and sturdy. I made that little bracket there to help hold the piping in place. So the reason I went with this design and not something that would go through here or underneath this area here is because of my radiator design. I've only got like a 3/4 size radiator that slightly leaves some slight space on each side. So this brackets I had welded on the radiator years ago. So basically you can see the filter through the bumper right there. So I figured this should get me some cold air, and then I've got another bumper where I'm going to get rid of that fog light, so I should have even more air going there, hopefully. So yeah, this is it. Hopefully this is good enough. I know it's a little close here to the coolant lines and stuff, but we'll see how that pans out with some intake temperature readings. But yeah, this is it. I'm pretty much ready for Le Tune. I'm just going to go over some tire pressures and stuff and make sure that the car is running 100%, but it should be. So yeah, I'm excited. First tune ever. First time I'm tuning this car. I've been running off a base map for God knows how long. So stick around, guys, because there will be a part 2 of the tune. It may be brief, but there's going to be a part 2. So take care, be well, stay safe, and I'll catch y'all guys on the next video because I got to go.